Hey everyone, welcome to Tony for By the Elements. Tony for you. Druidry or Druidism is one of the most famous spiritualities in the history of mankind. With inspirations taken in almost every single fantasy setting and media, its history and elements are apparent throughout all of our psyches. Despite this, not much is known about the actual real-life religion. The divine essence of nature is something we all intuitively understand, but there is much more to it than worshipping the earth and elements, and not really turning into a bear like in D&D. It's a spirituality that existed for millennia, but there are even aspects of Druidism in our modern world, and more important to history than you might think. Shrouded in the woods of ancient Europe and armed with the knowledge of the elements, let's learn about the ancient practice of Druidry. Before we get into it, I'd like to take some time to thank today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. I'm a firm believer that a good night's rest will cure anything that ails you, and Manta Sleep is here to help. I personally have always wanted to use a sleep mask, but couldn't really find one that fit my needs. I'm a side sleeper and get to bed with my phone on watching videos almost every night. The light from the phone is not helping your sleep, and you're not really watching the videos anyway. So when Manta Sleep reached out to me and offered to give me a pro sleep mask specifically designed for side sleepers and 100% blackout for the eyes, I was absolutely thrilled. The adjustable strap makes it one size fits all, and the cups around the eyes give you no discomfort at all. The breathability is fantastic too, so you won't be sweating the entire night. If you sleep with something in the background like a white noise machine or nature sounds, Manta has you covered there too. The Manta Sound Sleep Mask comes with Bluetooth headphones adjustable on the side with a 20-hour battery life. And don't worry, the mask won't annoyingly beep in the middle of the night when it's low charge. There's a lot more options too, so check out the website, like the cool sleep mask for cold therapy, and the weighted sleep mask, which makes you look like some kind of cyborg while you sleep, which is pretty cool. If you're interested, check the link below and use my affiliate link to get a discount on your checkout. Once again, thanks so much to Manta Sleep for sponsoring the video, and without further ado, let's get into it. The origin of Druidry is closely intertwined with all of Western Europe. Most commonly associated with Celtic Ireland, it also has roots in France and even as far as Switzerland. Unfortunately, the very beginning of Druidry has been lost to time, due to them not keeping written records. Archaeological finds and writings from contemporary figures can shed more light on the religion and its practices, however. Most of the knowledge of Druidry's early days can be understood from the writings of Julius Caesar, circa 50 BC, as well as other well-known figures like Cicero, Tacitus, and Pliny the Elder. Specifically, in the Commentarii de Bello Gallica, Julius wrote of the military expansion of Rome into Gaul, or what is modern-day France. The Druids were noted as being the main force of opposition against the Roman forces, which depicts them as more than simple priests and tenders to the forest, but as political leaders and even war strategists. While ultimately unsuccessful in their defense against Rome, the Druids were of keen interest to the Roman leader. Accounts of Druid society in Gaul specifically was written about in Book 6, chapters 13 through 18. Starting with noting the high social standing these religious figures had in Gaelic society at the time. Being appointed by kings, they held a domain over almost any civil dispute and guided the young of the region in all manners of philosophy and religious practice. And in matters of importance, they were second only to the king themselves. This is supported by the writing, "The Celts appointed Druids, who likewise were versed in the art of seers and other forms of wisdom, without whom kings were not permitted to adopt of plan any course, so that it was that those who ruled and the kings became their subordinates and instruments of their judgment." Maybe I actually gave them too little credit. In fact, they were on some occasions more respected than the royalty themselves. From Julius's findings, sacrificial rites were a common practice in even everyday life for this strange society. Extreme highlight is given to the ceremonies to preserve the land from famine, plague, and disaster, being the burning of potentially hundreds of people alive. Due to the age of this writing, obviously the validity and exact numbers of these claims could not be verified, but from other accounts of the Druids, there is no doubt sacrifice was an incredibly important part of their order. Specifically, Julius accounts, they have images of immense size, the limbs of which are framed with twisted twigs and filled with living persons. These being set on fire, those within are encompassed by the flames. Trapping their sacrifices in cages of wood and setting them ablaze to appease the spirits seemed to have been an unfortunate reality of everyday life. On the flip side, there's plenty to admire of early Druidic society, as even Julius writes of their positive attributes as well. A Druid leader ruled until his death, according to account, and the successor was to be chosen by a vote, or by violence. Kind of unfortunate from the trial by combat part, but it still shows an early sign of democracy within their order, rather than the common hereditary hierarchy. The scholarly aspects of Druidic society are also surprisingly advanced, as they placed high emphasis on the stars and their movements, the size of the cosmos and the earth, the nature of the world, and the powers of immortal deities. From this, we can understand they had at least a basic knowledge of astrology, astronomy, theology, and a keen geographical sense as well. Sadly, the writings of Julius Caesar, while being one of the only first-hand accounts as well as the most well-preserved historical piece, must be taken with a grain of salt, as he provides horrific accounts of their human sacrifice as well as glowing endorsements of their intellect. These can be understood as him attempting to portray them as both barbaric and worthy of conquest, but also worthy of assimilation into Roman society, as was common practice for the time. From the writings of Caesar, Pliny the Elder, and many other accounts, both contemporary and later in history, the Druids were a social class all on their own, with incredibly high power and esteem within Gaelic society. Their final say on theological matters and long discussions of the divine bodies in space, as well as oversight in sacrifices both human and animal, put them in a league of their own. Once again, the accusation of human sacrifice was actually a very popular one to lay at those whom you deemed worthy of conquest at the time. Portraying the Celtic people as backward sadists with room to grow into civilized people was most likely just a ploy to justify their war against them. What wasn't mentioned in Julius's writings, but what I feel is also worthy of note, is the gender equality in their region. There are many accounts in Irish folklore of Bondrui, which translates directly to woman druid, and they play incredibly prominent roles in their society and folklore. Many stories tell of them aiding heroes to defeat evil witches, train mighty warriors, and most famously helping raise Finn McCool, one of the most important figures in Irish mythology. Now, let's get into what Druids actually believe in. This is easier said than done, however, since, as mentioned before, their history is all but lost to time. Once again though, there are some accounts from neighboring societies of their exploits. Julius Caesar apparently befriended a Druid, and they managed to convey some of their beliefs in one way or another. Apparently, they believe in some form of reincarnation. The soul would leave the mortal body after it expires, and enter a new one when the time came. Druids also believe in a god called Dis, from which all people were descended. As well as this, well, actually there really isn't anything more that I could find. Yes, that really is all there is to know about the actual Druidic religion and beliefs of the divine, and even these points should be taken not as complete fact. Many scholars believe Julius to have attributed the god Dis to the god Dispater, which is the Roman analog to the Greek god Hades, ruler of the underworld. Whether the Druids' actual god was named something else, or if they even had a supreme god, is still up for debate. Once again, this may have just been another ploy from Caesar to portray the Druids as just close enough to Roman society, but just needing a little push. That push being complete assimilation into Roman society. So who really knows if that's true? As mentioned before, many accounts happened well after the fact, or were heavily doctored for the Roman viewpoint at the time, and the rest were written potentially hundreds of years after the fall of the religion and its practices. So that's it, right? Well, not exactly, as there are still some slight insights we can get from archaeological finds. About a century ago, what was believed to be a calendar was found in eastern France dating back to the 2nd century BC. Dubbed the Coligny calendar, based on the region and date, it can be understood that this was a religious artifact of the Druids. Found in a Gaelic temple, from what we can piece together, it labels points in the year as either good or bad, as well as a more ominous dub of inharmonious for certain days. A lot of insight could be had from this find, as with this we can understand they did indeed have a basic understanding of astrology and astronomy, as they counted the days by the moon phases and potentially had a basic inclination of weather patterns of the area. Oddly enough though, they had 14 months in the year instead of the modern 12. This calendar is a remarkable piece of history, as it is incredibly precise with information even modern calendars neglect to provide. As for the evidence of human sacrifice, well, there are a few finds leading to that belief, and some reliefs on temple walls depicting decapitated heads. Celtic historian Barry Cunliffe believes the practice was likely factually accurate, but greatly over-exaggerated, and based on evidence, I would be inclined to agree. Another archaeological find associated with the Druids is a set of bronze spoons found commonly in areas Druids were active. Found in pairs, one has a hole bored into the bottom, and the other has 4 distinct sections separated into quadrants with a small circle in the middle. The use of these instruments is unknown for sure, but many believe them to be used in some act of divination. One spoon would be held above the other, while some kind of liquid or grain was filtered through the top spoon and dripped into the quadrants of the bottom spoon. From this, some divine information could be interpreted by the Druids. In the years following, findings of Druidic artifacts became less and less frequent, and over time, it seemed like the Roman people suppressed the religion, or it simply changed beyond recognition as the years went on. We do know that the Druids were only one small part of the Celtic polytheism practiced in the region, so perhaps the sects simply lost favor over time as the more structured Christian tradition was brought over. St. Patrick was written about having clashes with Druids over his time in Ireland, but even then they were nothing more than stereotypical sorcerers wearing robes and practicing diabolical magics. While once an incredibly influential and prominent sect of religious officials, now they are the stuff of legends, remembered to this day as enigmatic keepers of nature and wise teachers of those who seek knowledge. Despite how little we actually know about the religion itself, it is still nice that we remember them fondly, and will continue to do so as long as you need a fantasy class of nature lovers. That covers this crash course on Druidry. There wasn't really much to go off of, but what little we can learn is still worth preserving, and there always is an opportunity for more finds as time goes by. Let me know what you think of the Druids in the comments down below, and while you're down there, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Special thanks to Andre Vinicius de Silva Valens, Arctic Mirror, Kalos, Kerhos, Goose Kebab, Jem Morales, Just a Middleman, Masker2196, Matt M, Patty123, Paul Torrio, The Digital Dutchman, VideoGamer75, and many more for supporting the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to support, check the link in the description below. Thanks for watching this Druidic deep dive, and I'll see you in the next Tony for You. Have a good one.